Well, hello there. Let me take you behind the scenes on creating this oil painting titled For the One. Now, this isn't a thorough tutorial, just a brief walkthrough on my process. So for my layout, I use a colored pencil, nothing special. We're just here to get the job done. But I do like a colored pencil because it does not smear when I am applying the sketch as well as applying the underpainting. I did use a projector beforehand to scale my reference picture onto the canvas. I just like to go back in and define some areas as need be. Next, we're gonna get into my favorite Master's Touch oil paint. I like to start off with a burnt umber and white so that this can be my base colors for my underpainting. And I also included in some burnt umber as well for the shadows. So you can find this clip-on dish at Hobby Lobby, but let's jump into this Gamsol, which is an odorless solvent. I like to refer to it as water for oils. I'm starting off with a large flathead brush and a filbert style brush, so let's get into it. So I know some may question why even do an underpainting. For me, I personally like it because it allows me to see where my values are going, meaning the shadows versus the highlights. It gives some sense of dimension on where you will be placing your colors. Now, I don't do this for my smaller paintings, but I feel like it is necessary to do for my larger pieces. It's not mandatory for your underpainting to be brown. It could really be any color that you would like, but because brown is such a warm tone to start with, especially for this piece that has a lot of warm and subtle dark colors, I say why not. But it's up to you. You paint your underpainting whatever color you like, as long as it's not causing any confusion on your value placement. I believe that underpainting is a great foundation for the first layer to stick. I don't think the canvas itself, even though it's already gessoed, I just don't feel like it really holds that first layer as vibrant as that underpainting would. So as far as my blending, I like to pack my paintbrush with both the white and the burnt sienna and start to blend onto canvas from there. Usually within my instructional courses, I like to break down 3 main hues, one for the highlights, the base color, and the shadows. Now as we wrap up the underpainting, let's get into the fun stuff. Yes, we're talking about texture. Here I am using acrylic gesso. Here I am using acrylic gesso and cotton balls, so I'll be breaking them up, which of course the cotton balls will be acting as the lamb hair. And next we're going to pour in some gesso to get that cotton ball saturated in, which I'm making sure they're all covered and fully sealed. So here I'm just going in with a layer of gesso to make sure that the cotton balls do stick, and I'm pulling each one of them apart and layering them to imitate how the lamb hair grows. Next, I'm just going in to make sure that they are all covered. I don't want any air pockets. I don't want the cotton balls to deteriorate over time, so making sure that it is fully covered. So this is the next day. I allowed it to dry overnight with the fan on, and the texture came out perfect. I cannot wait to apply the paint. I'm applying a generous amount of burnt umber and working with my primary colors because that's what I like to blend best with. So I'm gonna start tackling the folds of Jesus's cloak. And I know I get a lot of questions on how to paint fabric. And all I can suggest, as I did in the tutorial, is to treat your painting like a puzzle piece. Focus on each fold first with the darkest hue. So starting with the shadows and then blending your way out to the base and then into the highlights. You want to make sure that you are focusing on your reference picture as much as possible, because then that creates a muscle memory for you to start building that confidence to know where to place your values correctly. A gentle reminder that this is the first official layer, so don't get so hung up on details or defining. Right now we are just color blocking and making sure we know where our hues are going. So with oils, I do not work fat over lean. I actually do lean over fat, which I know is a bit confusing, but I like to pack in as much paint as I can, and then towards the layers of detail, I like to do what they call glazing, which is lightly glazing the details for the finalized layers, but you'll see that further along. And I guess that's the secret to a frequently asked question that I get is, how do I blend so smoothly? It's because once I allow that previous layer to not fully dry, but cure enough to where I can add the next layer, and it blends so buttery smooth. And that's how I get that smooth, buttery finish. So as far as me packing in these colors for the lamb, I am starting with the darkest hue first before I start adding the highlights of white to his wool. I know he looking a little dingy right now, but that's because that baby been in the forest, okay? He been lost in the wilderness trying to find his way. So don't be alarmed by these colors, but he is supposed to look dingy, and he will come alive towards the end once the details get added. All right, so we are getting into the next day, which means this would be considered the second layer. And this helps me to really start adding in more hues and building dimension for each segment. So I'm basically just deepening the folds with more umber and black. The same goes for the skin tone, which I'm using a burnt sienna yellow as well as some crimson red, starting to really define the hands with some dimension. And as you can see on the side, I actually used my own hand as a reference just so I can get a little bit more keen on the details. I'm gonna let the hands dry a bit and jump into adding some detail to the lamb fur, and then jumping from that into the background. And just as I did the element itself, I'm doing the same to the background with just packing the color and color blocking where I see fit. I'm using this very rigid scumbling effect that helps the colors blend perfectly together. My goal was to not make the background as detailed as the foreground, so it is purposely blurred so that the focal point can be on the foreground. And then here I'm using what they call a mop brush. This really helps blend and give that blurred effect to anything. I would say this brush is ideal for clouds or water or anything that you want a nice soft effect on. So here I'm using a round brush with flat white, just wisping some of that drenched wool into the shadows. From there, I'm jumping back to the background, just blending in some more hues to make it a little bit more vibrant. And again, this is a scumbling effect to get it not defined, but to create a smooth blend. And this is what I mean by glazing. I'm taking more solvent than paint and just adding some finalized details to the painting. All right, so this is the next day, which I am wrapping up. Make sure that you paint your girl's edges. You cannot have her out here naked. Canvas edges being painted is just like the chef's kiss of just topping it off. Now I did want to enhance the hands just a little bit more, but we are wrapping up this painting. This took me about a week to complete. And when I say I completed this out of pain and obedience rather than enjoyment, trust me. But it came out beautiful, and I hope y'all really enjoyed this process. Let me know if you've learned anything new or any tips or tricks that can help you on your own painting. Thank you for stopping by and see you next time.